Airtable list template. In the third video of this template series, we'll be introducing the Airtable list template. This template will show you the necessary steps for connecting a database to your app. So let's get going. So to do this, we're going to start by copying the template. We can rename it here. In my example, we have a list of cupcakes in our database, so we will call it My Cupcake Shop. I'll leave a link in the description to the database which you can copy so it looks just like this. And as you can see, it has a name, an image, a price, and an ID to represent our cupcakes. We simply copy and paste, add it to the workspace we want, and we end up with our database that we can, again, call whatever we would like. I'll rename it My Cupcakes, and that way you'll be able to see the difference. Now, normally, if I go into my project that I copied, I still have the old database here. And it's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is just recreate another Airtable node like this. And in the new Airtable node, I'm going to go into my account and copy the key like this, and then add it here. I choose the My Cupcakes database with the cupcake table. And then if I go into the node that we had in the base, you can see that there is an entire logic to it. There are explanatory comments, but we're not going to take them into account. Instead, I'll directly tell you what to do, and that way it will be easier for you to follow along. I'll reorganize it first so that it's easier to read, and I'll explain it all to you as we go. The graph is actually quite simple. All it does is say, when I appear, set loading to true. And then I will get my rows from Airtable. And I set the cupcake variable from the rows that I got. Then I set is loading to false, which allows us, when is loading is true, to display a loader, and when it's false, to display the data directly once it's loaded. Then, if I look at the retrieve rows, we can see here that we also have a filter. I'm going to put it in full screen so that you can see it a little bit better. It will say retrieve search query, so that this is a variable that we defined, and compare it to the value of the name, so that my name corresponds to this column here in my Airtable. And check to see if it looks the same. So, search in Airtable if it contains more or less the same letters. For example, if I start typing Choco, it will find Choconut and Chocomint. The syntax is therefore between brackets, the name of the field to check the name of the field, and there, between quotation marks, the value for when it's a hard value. So in this case, when you retrieve from the search query variable. And so that's it for the search. And in this case, where there is no search, we don't do anything. And for the rest, it's the same thing. We said that we do this when it appears, but we also do this, obviously, when search query changes, so that every time we retype new text, we redo the query to display the new lines that correspond correctly. So first I copy and paste all of this. If I make a copy and I go to my new Airtable and I paste it there, we see that there is not a lot that changes. That's just because all of this depends on Airtable, so that's normal. So we can see that is loading and cupcake are not copied either. And that's simply because they are defined on the Airtable node. And you can see that here. So what I'm going to do to be able to do this much more easily is that I'm going to take these variables, I'm going to move them to the root of my project, to the node here. So normally, if I take all of this, copy and paste it here, we see that everything is copied correctly. And this is easier to do. And now, normally, I only have to add my retrieve lines node. And here, it's the same logic. Don't forget in the other one above to make our filter. And so if I retrieve this, copy and paste it, and go here, of course without forgetting to connect the rows as well, I can turn it into a formula. I then apply my formula, and then of course I'm going to look for search query in the variables. And so here's my formula. It was the same one I had in the other version of the Airtable here. So now we just have to move this here. We can delete the old Airtable node that we had here that we don't need anymore. And now we have our database that fetches our cupcakes directly into the new database that we copied from the database. You can see here that it works correctly. If I also try searching here, it also works. And one last test that we can do to see, for example, if in the database I can add one here, for example, peanut. I don't put an image for now, but it will sell for $10. If I go back to my project, it will have been added. Now there's no image yet, so it's not very pretty, but you can at least see that it works. So there you have it. You have all of the logic that works afterwards with the notion of loading and so on. So we're not going to go into too much detail because it's managed within the template. But there are other tutorials that explain how to create this from scratch. Thanks for watching this video. You now know the basics on how to use Airtable. And don't hesitate to take a look at our other tutorials if you really want to master this tool. See you in the next set of videos.